Episode 27. Time Makes Mistakes. The first mistake was small, so small it passed as noise. A delivery arrived 20 minutes before it was sent. The timestamp confirmed it. The sender denied early dispatch. The recipient accepted the explanation that systems occasionally misreport time. The package contained nothing urgent. The error dissolved. Later that day, a meeting ended before it began. Participants received confirmation of completion without recollection of attendance. Notes existed. Decisions were recorded. No one remembered the discussion. They assumed automation. They moved on. The system had made an adjustment too early. No consequence followed. First, the next mistake was directional. A person walked into a building they had never entered before and felt certainty that they had already left it. Not familiarity. Completion. The visit felt concluded the moment it began. They turned around. Nothing compelled them to stay. They exited without distress. The building remained unvisited. No one noticed. These errors did not accumulate in the same way repetition had. They scattered. They appeared where pressure had recently eased. Places where decisions had resolved too cleanly. Where closure had arrived without resistance. Time began misplacing endpoints. Instead of repeating sequences, it misassigned them. A circled individual noticed this first. They had experienced repetition previously. They had felt the body's adjustment. They had slept through consolidation. Now something else occurred. A moment ended too soon. They reached for an object and felt the action complete before contact. Their hand stopped midair. The impulse had resolved itself. They did not feel alarm. They felt interruption. They finished the movement. Nothing happened. The sensation did not recur immediately. Later, a conversation ended abruptly. Not interrupted. Completed. The final sentence felt delivered without being spoken. Both participants paused. Neither corrected it. They separated. The mistake had replaced process with outcome. The list did not change. Time was not escalating. It was slipping. Errors appeared where alignment had become efficient. The system had optimized too far. A clinician noticed a different anomaly. Their records began referencing follow-ups that had not occurred. The references were consistent. The outcomes made sense. The timelines did not. They checked logs. The logs aligned with the references. Memory did not. The clinician accepted the documentation. They scheduled nothing further. The patient improved. No one questioned the absence. Another person experienced anticipation failure. They prepared for an event they knew would happen. They felt no readiness. Not anxiety. Absence of buildup. When the event occurred, it felt already finished. They responded appropriately. They did not feel present. The error was temporal placement. Experience lagged behind resolution. This did not impair function. Thinned experience. The old man did not appear. He was not needed. There was no saturation. There was misalignment. Time had begun closing loops too early. The system noticed. It did not correct immediately. It observed. Errors multiplied gently. A message arrived with a reply already attached. The reply matched what the recipient would have written. They read it. They did not feel surprise. They accepted it as efficient. They did not send anything. Later, they realized they had not expressed themselves. The realization did not persist. Underlined individuals experienced fewer mistakes. When they did, the mistakes resolved without residue. They did not notice. Circled individuals noticed most. They were still sensitive to process. They felt the truncation. They did not resist it. They adapted. Adaptation increased error rate. Time compensated by cutting further. The system had removed friction. Now it was removing sequence. The scars did not change. Sleep did not restore. The list remained fixed. This was not a new phase. It was a consequence. The system had accelerated alignment. Time responded by skipping steps. A person attempted to intervene. They slowed deliberately. They extended pauses. They reintroduced deliberation. They resisted premature closure. The mistakes reduced briefly. then reappeared elsewhere. The intervention did not resolve error. It displaced it. Another person attempted the opposite. They acted quickly. They avoided reflection. They allowed outcomes to arrive without process. Their experience flattened. Mistakes did not occur for them. Time preferred compliance. This preference was not moral. It was mechanical. Where friction persisted, time erred. Where friction vanished, time flowed. The errors were not catastrophic. They were subtle. They altered meaning. A goodbye felt concluded before words. A decision felt settled before debate. A path felt taken before movement. People continued functioning. They lost texture. One person described it privately as living after the ending. They did not repeat the phrase. The list did not update. It did not track error. It tracked compatibility. Time was now producing mistakes in incompatible contexts. Those contexts were shrinking. As the day progressed, errors clustered. Not geographically, cognitively. People who noticed sequence experienced more. People who did not experienced fewer. The system was converging. A circled individual experienced a larger error. They arrived somewhere they had not decided to go. The route had resolved itself. They stood still, uncertain how they had arrived. They checked messages. The decision to go there had been made earlier. They did not remember making it. They accepted the decision. They continued. The error was not direction. It was authorship. Time had executed a decision without conscious participation. This unsettled the person briefly. The sensation passed. They adapted. Time adjusted again. The next error occurred without human involvement. Process completed itself. An application was approved before submission. The approval referenced criteria that matched the applicant perfectly. The applicant had not applied. They received notification. They accepted. They did not submit afterward. The system logged completion. No correction followed. This was efficient. This was wrong. Time had skipped initiation. The system noticed. Still, no immediate correction occurred. Errors were being sampled. The old man did not appear. Closure was not the issue. Process was. Time had begun optimizing away the middle. Those who valued process felt disoriented. Those who valued outcome felt relieved. The list reflected neither. It remained static. This was not sorting. This was drift. Drift occurred after too much alignment. Time had reduced variability. Now it lacked reference. Errors appeared because time no longer encountered resistance where resistance had defined sequence. Mistakes were not failures. They were misplacements. Outcomes arriving too soon. Endings preceding beginnings. The system allowed this briefly. It needed to see how much error could be tolerated. People adjusted. Most did not notice. Those who noticed adapted or thinned. No alarm was raised. No event marked the shift. Time made mistakes quietly. The next mistake would not be small. It would be observable. Not by everyone. By those still sensitive to order. The next mistake was noticed. Not announced. Not confirmed. It was noticed because it refused to disappear. A circled individual experienced a contradiction that did not resolve. They received a message canceling an event that had already occurred. The cancellation included details that matched the completed event precisely. Time and location were correct. Outcome was correct. Sequence was not. They reread the message several times. It did not update. They did not respond. Later, someone asked why they had attended an event that was canceled. They did not answer. There was no correct response. The mistake had created two valid states. Neither collapsed. This persistence was new. Previous errors had thinned experience but closed cleanly. This one remained open. The person felt tension. Not anxiety. Instability. They attempted to recall the order of events. The memory resisted. Not absence. Interference. They stopped trying. The tension eased slightly. The contradiction remained. Elsewhere, a different error occurred. A door unlocked itself after being locked. The mechanism showed no fault. Logs indicated authorized access. No identity was attached. The entry had already happened. Whoever had entered had already left. Nothing was missing. Nothing was disturbed. The error was not intrusion. It was completion without presence. The building adapted. No investigation followed. Time had produced an effect without a cause. These errors did not propagate widely. They selected. Those already sensitive noticed them. Others did not. The list remained unchanged. The system was not escalating. It was drifting further from reference. One person noticed that their internal sense of before and after weakened. They could still order events. But the emotional weight normally carried by sequence was gone. Beginnings felt optional. Endings felt premature. They functioned efficiently. They felt hollow. They did not describe the feeling. Another individual noticed a more disruptive effect. They prepared to speak and heard their own response internally before opening their mouth. The response was correct. It was what they would have said. They did not speak. The conversation moved on. They had participated without participating. This absence registered briefly, then normalized. Time had begun substituting internal resolution for external action. The system accepted this. The old man did not appear. There was no saturation. There was erosion. As errors accumulated, people experienced a subtle change in motivation. They felt less compelled to initiate. They responded more. Initiation felt redundant. Outcomes arrived regardless. Those who continued initiating experienced more mistakes. Time truncated their efforts. Those who responded passively experienced fewer. The system preferred response, not action. A circled individual attempted to resist this shift. They deliberately initiated. They spoke first. They decided early. They forced beginnings. The result was delay. Their actions took longer to complete. Outcomes resisted. They encountered friction. Time pushed back. They reduced initiation. The friction eased. Time had begun enforcing a new rule. Begin less. Finish faster. The rule was not stated. It was applied. Sleep reinforced this. Dreams now completed scenarios that had not started. People woke knowing conclusions without context. They acted accordingly. The day aligned. Those who remembered process felt displaced. They no longer recognized authorship. Decisions belonged to time, not to them. This realization caused brief distress. Then adaptation. The scars tingled faintly in some. Not all. The body adjusted again. The list did not update. It had already identified those still sensitive. Errors increased in scale. A circled individual arrived somewhere they had never planned to go and discovered that arrangements had already been made in their name. Reservations confirmed. Access granted. Instructions provided. They complied. The experience felt guided, not controlled. They completed the task. Later, they realized they had no memory of choosing it. The realization did not change anything. They continued. Time had assumed authorship. The system did not object. Underlined individuals experienced minimal error. When errors occurred, they resolved invisibly. They did not notice. They did not carry tension. Crossed out individuals experienced almost none. Their presence was already thinned. Time did not allocate resources to them. Circled individuals experienced the most. They were still partially misaligned. Errors concentrated where process remained valued. One person attempted to document mistakes collectively. They gathered accounts. They attempted to map sequence violations. The effort failed. Counts did not align. Errors were personalized. There was no shared timeline to reconstruct. They abandoned the effort. The errors reduced slightly afterward. Time responded to attention again. The system preferred silence. A clinician noticed that treatment outcomes were arriving without treatment. Patients improved before intervention. Interventions occurred anyway. They did nothing. No harm resulted. The clinician felt unnecessary. They reduced workload. The outcomes persisted. Time had begun skipping correction entirely. It applied resolution directly. This efficiency came at a cost. People stopped experiencing anticipation. They stopped experiencing suspense. The future felt present. Not known. Already resolved. Motivation shifted. People acted because outcomes demanded completion, not because desire initiated them. Those who noticed felt disquiet. Those who did not notice nothing. The system favored the latter. The old man remained absent. He had no role in error. Error was not delay. Error was misplacement. Time no longer waited for readiness. It assumed. One error became undeniable. A person attended a funeral for someone who was still alive. The ceremony proceeded normally. Speeches were given. Grief was expressed. The person who was mourned was not present. No one questioned this. Later that week, the person died. The funeral was not repeated. Those who attended the first ceremony did not attend a second. The sequence had been inverted. The system accepted the outcome. This error did not spread. It remained localized. Those present felt disturbed. They did not speak of it. The error did not resolve. Settled. Time had made a mistake too visible to ignore. The system responded. Not with correction. With containment. Subsequent errors became smaller again. Less observable. Time adjusted. It learned. The mistakes were feedback. The system did not halt error. It refined it. Errors became less disruptive. More internal. People lost the sense of beginning entirely. They entered processes already underway. They exited before understanding. Life compressed. Not in duration. In authorship. Those who noticed the loss of authorship experienced friction. They felt displaced from their own actions. Those who accepted it felt relief. The list reflected none of this. It did not need to. The system had moved beyond sorting. It was now optimizing flow. Time had made mistakes because it had removed too much resistance. Now it corrected by removing less. But the damage remained. Once authorship was seeded, it did not return. The system preferred stability over agency. Time's mistakes revealed this preference. They were not accidents. They were calibration attempts. Some failed. Most succeeded. The next phase would not involve mistakes. It would involve correction without error. The errors were the last visible sign.